The human voice is the primary focus of the majority of all commercial music that is made. In fact, about 85 to 90% of all commercial music has a human lead vocal top line as the central focus of the songs. The lead vocal is extraordinarily important and should be prioritized instead of diminished or devalued, and it absolutely should not be treated as being less important than any other part of the production. Now, practically, this means that as producers and engineers, we ought to do every single thing that we can in our power to make sure that the lead vocal sounds as incredible as possible. This includes everything from mic choice to preamp choice to EQ and compression and all of those different choices, mic placement as far as the distance from the capsule to the mouth of the singer, even as far as the placement of the microphone and the singer in the room, and so on and so forth. And that also has to do with the capture of the vocal performance and everything like that as well. In today's video, I'm going to show you guys my hybrid workflow for my vocal production on pretty much every song that I produce these days. Now, disclaimer, my hybrid workflow, it's not the flashiest in the world, and it doesn't have to be. Frankly, I think it produces some really great results. So keep that in mind whenever you're working on your own vocal chain or your own workflow for the vocals that you produce. You don't need all the craziest, fanciest gear. You don't need the craziest, fanciest plugins. Really prioritize whatever sounds good to your ear. So in my chain, it's comprised of a couple budget pieces. It's comprised of a couple stock plugins, and so on and so forth. So let's go ahead and jump in and I'll show you. So typically for me, I use one of two different flavors of preamp for the vocals that I produce. I will either use my Focusrite Claret Plus 8 Pre in the air setting on my preamps, or I will use my 1073 recreation by Warm Audio for my preamp. Now, this is really cool because it gives me a couple of different really nice flavors that I could pull from. The Claret, especially with the air mode engaged, uses an entirely analog circuit that is reminiscent of the ISA 110 preamps that were in the Focusrite Studio consoles and the Focusrite Forte consoles that were super popular in the 80s and the 90s. So this in air mode gives me a nice open top end flavor with like a bit of a classic type of sound. The 1073 of course does the Neve 1073 kind of sound. It's more like Warm Audio's take on the 1073, but I really like it a lot, and I love the fact that this is a channel strip, and so not only is it a mic preamp, but it also gives me an EQ option as well, so by the time that I'm in the box, I've already done the majority of my work here. And as an extra bonus, it also has a tone button on the top, which I really dig depending on the vocal, depending on what I'm doing, and it really adds a nice like upper mid-range push to the vocals or whatever it is that you're capturing with it. It's really cool. Another option that I really love and use depending on the genre is the mic preamp, like pushing the mic preamp and turning down the output. Super popular thing to do with a Neve style, 1073 style preamps. That drive, even though this is not a true 1073, it's only Warm Audio's recreation. I do really like the drive and the coloration that you can get out of this preamp. When you push the preamp input quite a bit and you pull down the output, it's a little bit grungy and a little bit gnarly, but it's pretty cool. I like it a lot. Big fan. And after going through one of these two preamps, I will then go into my 1176 style compressor. Now this is a budget option. These guys currently go for like 200, 250, somewhere in that ballpark on Sweetwater. They're really dope. But even though this is a budget piece, I would highly, highly recommend it, to be completely honest. This can also be pushed and sounds pretty good even with the all-in mode on this compressor. It still sounds pretty good. I will say it doesn't quite compare to the higher budget ones, but for the cost, you're not going to beat this at all, I will say. Honestly, even when I get more gear in the studio, more expensive gear, I think this is probably going to be in my racks for a long, long, long time. Every lead vocal that I work on goes through my 1176 style compressor, and then it goes into the box where I add a little bit more processing. So let's go ahead and check that out, and I'll tell you about what's going on. So unfortunately, I don't have a way to screen record my input from my outboard gear, so I'm gonna bypass showing you that processing for now, and I'm gonna go ahead and jump straight into the box and show you what's going on. So as far as my processing for the lead vocal goes in the box, this is typically what I use as of right now. I always start with Melodyne. Can't overstate Melodyne enough. So for this particular vocal, let me go ahead and show you what I had before I tuned in time to this vocal. This is what it sounds like beforehand.
I could tell a billion stories of all your faith.
Sorry, let me turn that off.
I could tell a billion stories of all your faithfulness, the never-ending depth of all your love. You've given me much more than I deserve, but nonetheless.
All right, you get the idea. Can't play too much of this for copyright reasons, but after I got this vocal tuned and got it timed and everything, this is what it sounded like at that point.
I could tell a billion stories of all your faithfulness, the never-ending depth of all your love.
Cool. So after Melodyne, I will sometimes then go through Waves Tune to add the final dimension of tuning. Now this just depends. It totally depends on what I'm doing in the song. It depends on the genre of the song as well. If it's more of a very pop-leaning song, I might tune a little bit more aggressively. I might have the tuning all the way up to 100. But if it's more of like a ballad or like a country song, or it just depends, I'll bring the correction down quite a bit and keep the note transition a little bit higher, maybe the speed a little bit higher too. That way it's still being tuned, but it's not quite as unnatural. Now, if I spend quite a bit of time on the vocal in Melodyne, which I typically will do anyways, I will go a little bit lighter on the Waves tune, but again, it just depends. If I'm going for a more electronic tuned sound, like if it's again a very stereotypical radio aimed pop song, then I will have more tuning on it. I will have more auto tune on it in addition to Melodyne. That just kind of helps clean up a couple things like maybe runs or some slightly off notes or things within the words, variations of notes within the words, if I didn't go through and like very, very finely tune that in Melodyne. So, okay, after tuning, I will typically do a little bit more EQ correction. Now, like I said, again, sometimes I won't actually EQ in the box because I've done all the EQ correction with my 1073 already, and I think it sounds pretty good and don't really want to mess it up too much more with more destructive EQ, but it just depends. Sometimes I'll go and I'll add some flavor here with an EQ plugin. Now, currently I have the stock Ableton EQ8 plugin here, but sometimes I will use the EQ from Ozone. Sometimes I'll use like a Pro Q4, whatever, but that's the next step of my process, is going into some EQ. After EQ, I will often run through Silk Vocal. This is essentially another layer of EQ compression, and I will just do this to taste. This is really helpful for, I don't know, just kind of dialing in the vocal a little bit more, giving you fewer parameters to mess with, and so it can kind of help make your decision-making a little bit easier. I'll often use just the de-essing feature of this plugin to tame off some of those really high sibilances of a vocal. And so I'll deactivate the mid and the low, and then I'll just engage the high. And sometimes I'll add in a little bit of compression here as well. That just depends on the song, just depends on what the vocal needs. So after Silk Vocal, this is by Waves, by the way. After Silk Vocal, I will typically go into a UAD LA2A plugin. I really love the combination of 1176 and LA2A. That's a very, very popular vocal combination of compression, and so I really like using that. I'll oftentimes use the 1176 to just catch the really, really quick transients and kind of just tame those loud dynamics down really quickly. Just kind of tap them down, and then I'll use the LA2A to kind of do heavier compression overall in the vocal. The LA2A is a much slower, much more gentle compressor. I don't know if I'll ever get an outboard version of it or not. I think the plugin version is pretty nice. I might get a CL1B or like Warm Audio's WA1B or something that does something kind of similar to an LA2A, but we will see. For now, I'm just rocking the LA2A plugin, and I like it a lot. It does exactly what I need the majority of the time, especially when it's in combination with the 1176. So after my LA2A plugin, I will typically go into a Fresh Air as well to bring out a little bit more top end in the vocal. Now, that being said, if I'm using the ISA sound in my Claret Plus 8 Pre, I typically will not use the fresh air because it's already bringing in a lot more of that top end with that other preamp flavor. If I'm using the 1073, depending on what I'm doing with the EQ, I may or may not bring in the air plugin, but it really brings out some nice top end in the vocal. I really like it. And this one is by Slate Audio. After the fresh air plugin, I'll go into the soften plugin by Focusrite. This also helps with de-essing, and it also helps with bringing out just some general harshness in the vocal. This one's really cool because it gives you a couple of different options as far as the different types of applications you're using it for. I will typically use it on vocals, but you can also throw it on a mix bus and use it with like lighter settings to kind of clean up the overall harshness or brightness of the overall song, or you could throw it on something like a guitar cab or whatever. There's different use cases that you can use this plugin for, and it sounds pretty good typically in the different use cases. That being said, if you really push this plugin to like the highest settings, it starts to kind of sound a little bit funky, and I really don't love it. And so I will typically use this plugin somewhere around like 50 to like 75%, especially if it's on a vocal. If it's on like a mix bus, I will probably put it at like, 15 to like 40%, maybe 40%, probably closer to like 30%, but it kind of depends. And again, I use my ears for everything. I don't just go off of like, oh, I always use it this percentage, and so I'll just do that. I always use my ears. And sometimes I'll just abandon a lot of these plugins anyways. To be honest, sometimes after going through the 1176 and 1073 on my way in, the vocal is like 98% done. I might just do some EQ shaping or something like that after the fact, but not always. So I'll go ahead and I will play around with this vocal and kind of just show you what it will sound like in a couple seconds. So I've already mixed this song, by the way, so I'm just going back through and kind of like reworking what I would do otherwise. So here is the printed vocal track right here. I'm gonna go ahead and copy down these plugins to this track. This is my printed lead vocal for when I did go through my 1073 and 1176. So this is what this vocal sounds like currently. I'll go ahead and play that for you. I'll play this chorus.
That's who you are. You are good. You are good. That's who you are. That's who you are. You are good. Through every situation.
Cool. So that's what this vocal sounds like after going through the 1073 and the 1176, using some EQ shaping on the 1073 and using some quick compression on the 1176. And then so here in the box, moving on forward through my current chain, I already like how this vocal is tuned, so I'm going to turn off Waves Tune. Then I would go into a EQ. Again, could be EQ8 from Ableton, could be another plugin. I'm very familiar with Ableton's EQ8. I've used it for literally like 10 years, and so I'm very familiar with it. So just really quickly, I'll walk you through kind of what I would do for this vocal.
You've given me much more than I deserve, but nonetheless, if I only had you, God, that'd be enough. You've given me much more than I deserve, but nonetheless, if I only had. You've given me much more than I deserve, but nonetheless, if I only had you, God, that'd be enough. You've given me much more than I deserve, but nonetheless, if I only had you, God, that'd be enough. I could tell a billion stories. I could tell a billion stories. I could tell a billion stories of all your faithfulness, the never-ending depth of all your love. So when I'm hurting, or I'm who you are, that's who you are. You are good, you are good, that's who you are, that's who you are. You are good. Through every situation, you're faithful all the same. That's who you are, that's who you are, that's who you are. You are good, you are good, that's who you are, that's who you are. You are good. Through every situation, you're faithful all the same. That's who you are, that's who you are. Who you are, that's who you are. You are good, you are good, that's who you are, that's who you are. You are good. Through every situation, you're faithful all the same. That's who you are, that's who you are, that's who you are. You are good, you are good, that's who you are, that's who you are. You are good. Through every situation, you're faithful. You are. Who you are, that's who you are. You are good, you are good, that's who you are, that's who you are. You are good. Through every when my prayers felt unanswered and silence filled the room, I remember every time you pulled me through. When I went through the desert in a season of drought, you were good back then, you're still good now. Tell a billion stories, I could tell a billion stories of all your faithfulness, the never-ending depth of all your love. You've given me much more than I deserve, but nonetheless, if I only had you, God, that'd be enough. I could tell a billion stories of all your faithfulness, the never-ending depth of all your love. You've given me much more than I deserve, but nonetheless, if I only had you, God, that'd be enough. I could tell a billion stories of all your faithfulness, the never-ending depth of all your love.
And so more or less, that is my hybrid workflow for processing lead vocals. Let me know what you think about it. Let me know what your vocal chain is in the comments below, and I'll be back with another video very soon. If you guys need any production or mixing, you can always feel free to email me at iosoundstudio@gmail.com, and I'd love to see if we can work together. That being said, I appreciate you being here. If you want to support the channel more directly, of course, you can hit that subscribe button. It's completely free of charge. Or you can check out my Patreon at patreon.com/iomusic. There I post full breakdowns that don't make it here on YouTube, and I'm also in the process of working on my own debut album. I'm probably gonna get the very first song completely done, more or less, this week, Lord willing. So if you guys wanna see the process of me making my own album and kind of just come along for the ride, you can check out the second or third tier on Patreon and support the album there, support the channel there. Anyways, I'll see you very soon with another video. Thank you for being here. See ya.